Good afternoon. Today we're going to make a 3-stone trellis ring. And we're going to start with using this ring right here as the base concept. So the trellis is where it does this little weaving between stones. The only difference is that we're going to weave all 3 stones together. So that's going to be the only difference from this particular piece that we're looking at. And we're going to use some standard stones. We're going to use a 6.5 millimeter center, and we're going to do a 5 millimeter on each side. Change those colors right there so we have those stand out. And I've already pre-positioned the gemstones at angles, both in the through finger and in the looking down that I like, as well as their respective height. So the height on the center stone actually is 6 millimeters on this particular piece. And that's what we're going to work with. And I already have it job bagged, but I'm going to job bag it one more time just to make sure any changes I've made have been taken care of. And one of the first things we need to do is figure out where the prongs are going to come in on each of these stones. So we have like a target point to shoot for. So what I like to use, and I'm going to switch to my perspective view here, is a tool in Matrix that is called Gem Guides. I'm going to rip that out. What this is going to do is it's going to turn on spots that we can actually aim for. And let's see, I'm going to start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the gem I want to use. And I'm only going to select 2 because the other side is going to be a mirror. So what I've done, so I've got these 2 gems selected, and I'm going to select the horizontal prong or the vertical prong, depending upon which one actually works out best for you. And actually, I think the vertical is going to be what I want. And I got to have these selected while I do this. And then I'm going to click the apply button. And then make sure you uncheck that box, otherwise you'll see stuff popping up on you all the time. So let's go ahead and close that up. And this is what it leaves you with. It leaves you with a bunch of lines. And if we just concentrate on that center stone, of course you can't see them from the top down. And these represent different possible prong locations. The one we're looking for is actually the blue ones. So I'm going to turn off the blue color, and I'm going to select the red and the green by just right-clicking on the color swatch, and I'm going to delete them and bring my blues back out. So those are all at the 45-degree angle coming into the gemstones. All right, so we want to build this thing so that we have got history on it. And that way we can make adjustments to it later, or we can save these pieces and then make adjustments further down the road for other size gemstones. Okay. So the first thing we need to do is we need to make a prong reference. Okay. So I'm going to actually take and I am going to draw a circle.
All right, thanks guys. I thought this was a good place
and
to start.
I am going to choose a round curve. And I'm going to choose this far out point here. And the position is going to be right at the very bottom. Change my layer color so it stands out. And this is going to be my prong. So I'm going to make this one on a 1 carat, 1.2 millimeters. And I had, no, it is diameter, good. I thought I had accidentally left this on radius. Okay, so I need that one. I'm going to need the same thing here. So I can actually copy that one, duplicate it from the bottom there to the bottom there. I'm going to do another curve, circle around curve at the bottom of that one, and that one's going to be one. Oops. Start that again. Round curve. I'll do the same, 1.2. And since we're at a little bit of an angle here, I don't want to do the copy and have it accidentally have the wrong angle to it. So I will do this again. Circle, around curve. Here's my curve. Started at the very bottom at 1.2 millimeter. Okay. Now that we've got those positions set, let's go ahead and highlight the set for the center stone. And I am going to make a duplicate of that with my gumball turned on. I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to drag this up even or just slightly over the top of the gemstone. Next, I'm going to highlight the side stone I've got set up, and I'm going to utilize Gem View, which will make this gemstone stand straight up and down in the viewport. And I'm going to do the exact same thing as I did previously. I'm going to highlight those two prong locations, hold down Alt, and drag with my gumball to just above, barely above. Now with nothing highlighted, I'm going to click on the Gem View button again, and that will set us back up straight. Now what this is going to represent where our prongs are going to go. The prongs are going to curve and swoop between this bottom prong here and this one. So we're going to have a nice little curvature coming here, but we want them to be straight from this location to this location so that we can set our stones. Alright, so now in the looking down view, I'm going to make a slight adjustment here to this location. I'm going to come out at an angle. Nope, we'll get back to that one later. Alright, so if we want to finish this part off first, we can. But first, let's job bag. Love my job bags. Alright, so I'm going to highlight those two locations first, and I'm going to come to my surface menu, and I'm going to choose Profile Sweep. Change my color. And I'm going to do the same thing with the outside set. Profile Sweep. And I'm going to do the same thing with this one right here. I'm not going to do the inside one on this gem. I'm not going to do that one right there. We'll come back to that one later. All right. Then I'm going to highlight this top profile. Utilize my F6. MSR. Now what I'm doing is I'm turning this into an actual profile. I'm not going to do anything with it, not going to manipulate it. I'm just going to hit enter. Then I'm going to highlight it again. F6. Profile cap. And I'm going to adjust that up a little bit. Probably about 0.5. Now, if we highlight both of those, you notice that we can't change those into profiles at two at a time. So we'll select them one at a time. MSR, enter. I'll select the second one. MSR, enter. Then I'll F6 profile cap. It remembers my last measurement, so I'll just hit enter. I'll select that one, profile cap, and enter. So that's the first part of our prongs. Already made and at the correct angles. So let's let's turn off the green. Now, I happen to be a huge fan of profile sweep. And let's see first what this is going to do for us if we profile sweep between these two bottom curves. Sometimes this will work out just the way we want, and obviously that is not going to cut it. Although that might be an interesting look for somebody, but not for me today. So let's undo that, get rid of it. Since the two sides are going to actually cross over one in front of the other, what we're going to need to do is make another circle profile. And I'm going to do this one in the side view. going to do a circle. And I'm going to start it, change its color, right at the 12 o'clock position. And this one I'm going to make 1.2 millimeter as well. And then I'm going to raise it up so it sits right on top of the rail. I'm going to drag it out to the side. All right, so let's try using our profile sweep between this curve, and this curve. Well, we can't do 3 at once, so we can only do 2 at a time. So we have to separate this into 2 separate options. So let's go ahead and select these 2 first. Change my color here, and let's do profile sweep. There's one. Let's highlight that one and this one. And profile sweep, there's 2. All right, so that's going to show us a little bit of what this is going to start to look like. Not a huge fan right here of this little bit of a jump up. So with history enabled, which we already have, and this is a history enabled GemVision command, we're going to highlight just this curve that we used here, this green one, and we're going to rotate it around the circle. So I'm going to choose the rotate command from F4 or world 0, and I'm going to rotate it a little bit and see how that updates. It's getting better. I'm going to do that again from F4. Move it just a little bit more. You know what? I think a little bit more would even be better. So let's F4. Let's try right there. Okay, that's a much smoother transition, and we're still hitting right on the finger line. If you want to move it down just a little bit more, you can, just to guarantee you're on that. If you want to stretch it a little bit bigger, you can do that and then readjust its position. So we've got a little bit more thickness right there where it actually touches the finger. I'm actually going to leave this at that point right there. All right. So that's one prong. Now if we were to mirror this all over, you'll see that they cross, but they cross at exactly the same point right here. So this is where we're going to make some slight adjustments to it. So with this all mirrored over, oh, I missed my profile. Let me redo that mirror. 1, 2, 3, 4. I should have all of those profiles. You know what? I'm just going to grab the profiles. My videos are done without editing, so you're going to see all my mistakes and everything else as well. All right, I copied one I didn't need to. I didn't need to copy the top one. So now I have got 1, 2, 3 that we can go between again here. I'm going to change some colors here just so we can see the different ways that this moves. All right, so we're going to do the blue ones next. So let's do profile sweep between here and here. Profile sweep between that profile. I forgot to start the command again. I used my right click to start the command on profile sweep, blue and blue. Okay, looks just like it did when we mirrored it. But what we're going to do this time is that we are going to grab one of those profiles. So I'm going to start with the green one, and I'm going to use my gumball, and I'm going to move it a specific amount outside of the ring. So I'm going to move that negative 0.3 millimeters. All right, now you saw that the history caused this other one to move. So let's break history. We'll select that one. Now we're going to move it by itself And we want to move this one, since we moved 0.3, it came with us. I'm going to move this one the same amount backwards. So in this case, it's going to be 0.6 millimeters in the positive. And now we get a nice over-under interaction here. I can take this prong, I can take this part of the prong, and I can mirror those over since they are in exactly the same locations now. So that's our first set. And let's change some color options here. We'll make that one all that color. We'll make that one all that color. Now what's really nice here now is that if I select those two color layers, which are my prongs, looking down view, I'm going to do a rotate with copy. So I've selected copy in the command line. From F4, I'm going to type in 180 and enter twice. And what this has done is it has given us our first complete sets of prongs with opposite crossovers. Okay, so before we get too far and forget, let's job bag. Alright, so we've got one more set of prongs to go, but I'm not going to do these ones until after I have my shank figured out. And before I can do my shank, I need to make some undergalleries. These wires are going to bend apart and away from each other if we don't have some proper undergalleries for them. So let's do undergallery rail from F6. I'm going to keep it rounded off, and let's adjust my positioning first. A little bit higher there. I'm going to make these 0.9, 1 millimeter thickness. And my bezel scale, let's bring that in just a little bit. Let's try 80 and see what that looks like. 80 is not enough. '90 gives us some good touch. So let's leave that one there. Let's do the same over on this side. And I'm actually going to use my F6. Match attributes. Select my center stone, bezel, and create style. Now this should be exactly the same thing with some slight size differences for the new stone. And I'm not liking it near as much, so I'm going to highlight it. F6, edit bezel. I'm going to push its scale out just a touch to 95. I'm going to adjust its placement down a little bit. And let's see, it's at 0.85. We'll make that also 1 millimeter. And we'll make that scale, we'll adjust that up to approximately 0.98. I'm going to make it so I can just about see into between the two, the stone and the bezel. Alright, and our shank's going to come up to this point right here. Alright, so that can be mirrored on over. We're starting to take form here. And again, job bag time. Alright, so now let's look at making our shank. So we're going to do a shank that's going to come up to the under bezel on the sides. So it's going to come up to this point right here and leave us a little bit of negative space underneath. So let's do an outside rail first. So I'm going to highlight my finger size. Do an outside rail. Okay, I like that one. Let's adjust our locations. I'm going to make this 1.8, now let's do 1.7 millimeter. That'll realistically finish out to about 1.6. 1.8 on the side. We're not adding any stones to the side of this, so we'll keep this kind of petite. And then what I'm looking for here is to just barely be underneath the top of that under bezel. Go ahead and hit enter. And we're going to want to choose a profile that's kind of got some smoothness to it going around, so semi-comfort fit. So let's do profile between two rails. And let's choose a profile to use. And I've got some custom ones up here I've created, but I'm thinking I'm going to start with, you know what, I like this one here. This is actually a stock GemVision profile. And looking down, I can see that I've got close to 3 millimeters between these two prongs. I can actually measure it if I want to get more exact, but I want to make sure I'm staying between that. So let's make this first one, start off with 2.5 millimeter. I'm going to leave a profile at 6 o'clock. I'm going to add. I'm going to swing that one on up. And we can see how that's going to hit. That looks really good actually on how that one's going to go. We can actually make this one a little bit skinnier if we'd like. Let's see what 2 millimeter, 2.1. There we go. I like that. 2.1 millimeters, so it'll be a little bit wider at the bottom, a little bit skinnier at the top there. And I think I'm going to leave it right there. So I'm going to hit enter to finish. I'm going to probably do some adjusting as we get into this a little bit more, but that's actually, let's back this profile off a little bit. So I'm going to highlight it, MSR, and I'm going to bring it down just shy of that under bezel. So you can see a little bit of a gap between the two. Okay, so let's just do a quick sweep. Change my middle layer. I'm going to, for now, hide some stuff. And I'm just going to sweep between these two profiles. So I'm going to do a sweep 2. Select my inside, my outside, rail, then my profiles, enter. Make sure my seam points are aligned, and enter. Now here's one of those instances where maybe, well, most of the time we're going to select maintain height so that that shank moves exactly the way we wanted it to and had in mind. Now the other thing we can do is we can keep maintain height off. Let me redo the profile, so there's with the height on and with the height off. I kind of like, that's kind of a cool little pinch there. May like that, may not. All depends on what you're drawing and what the customer wants before you do it. I'm actually going to do this twice so we can lay these two shanks side by side. So there's, with maintain height turned off. And I'm re-sweeping this again. And this time I'm going to turn on maintain height. So we can see the difference. Sometimes this can be considered more elegant and sexy. It all depends upon your personal point of view. I think I am actually going to go with that. So let me do some undos to move that back into place. Now we do have history enabled on this, so if we needed to make minor changes, we could. We can do a lot of things manipulating this. Put it back. All right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this top profile, turn on my under bezels so I can see them. I'm going to do an F6 and a profile cap. I want this to just barely come in and touch. Well, actually, we're going to do a 0.6 millimeter off of this one. All right, so that's what that's going to do. And let's turn everything else on so we can see how that looks. Okay. All right, so now we have one more set of prongs to make. And those prongs have got to go from this location right here, bottom of this inside one, down and match in with our shank. So what we need to do is we need to actually take this profile. We're going to make a copy of it, and then we're going to cut it up a little bit so that we can make the beginning profile for our curves. I'm going to turn some stuff off here. Turn that off. I'll turn those off. Excuse me. And then I'm going to take this profile and I'm going to make a copy of it, and I'm going to rotate it up to the 12 o'clock position. So I'm going to right click on rotate. What that does is that automatically selects copy in the command line for me. I'm going to start from F12, and I'm going to make sure that I snap to some point on my profile. It can be at the bottom, it can be at the top. If you got a snap that will grab it somewhere in the middle, that's fine. And I'm just going to move it with ortho, so hold down shift, straight up and down, click, and enter. And that has left us with this profile at the top. Well, I'm going to change its color so it doesn't get confused with any of these things that I'm doing. I'm going to change it to my cutting layer for now. I'm going to turn off the profiles I used for the shank, and I'm going to move to my side view. Well, what we need to do now is we need to cut this up. So I'm going to make sure that I have my project snap turned on. So that means that anything I draw is flat against the C-plane. And I'm going to start off by just drawing a straight line across. And I'm going to move that straight line in, about that high right there. So just over 1 millimeter. And then I'm going to take these two, and I'm going to do a trim. Trim out the top, trim out that, and trim out that. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off, make sure I've got my ring rails turned off. And I'm going to draw a curve from F4 straight up. And then I'm going to highlight all of this. I'm going to do another trim. Trim out this. So all I'm left with is this section here. Enter. Now let's round this off a little bit to hopefully make the transition between this shape and a circle a little nicer. So I'm going to come to my curves menu, page 2, first option there, fillet curves. And I'm going to change my radius to 0.25 to start with and see how that looks. I'm going to do that curve, that corner, and that corner. And then I'm going to join this together. Now, if you didn't know, you can use Control J on your keyboard as the default Rhino join command. Change its color. Now I'm going to come back to my through finger view. Now that I've got that drawn, I'm going to turn on my original profiles for sweeping the shank. And so we can see things a little better, I'll turn on my ring rails as well. What I want to do is I want to move this profile I just created just inside the shank behind this top shank profile. So I've got it highlighted, and I'm going to do a rotate, left click, from F4, straight up and down, so hold down my shift, And I'm going to come just inside. So just like that. So that's what we've got. All right, so let's turn things back on again and find my curves. Actually, there they are right there on my red layer. I need to do a profile sweep between that curve and this curve. So let's do that now. I change the colors on those so that they're the same. And let's go to our surface menu. Profile sweep between this one and that one. Let's turn everything else on to see how that looks. Okay, so far so good. Yes, I like it. Nice thing about this one is that this can now be mirrored across all 4 positions. So if I grab this and that, let's make those all one color. I'll make them gray for now. And oh, one more thing I forgot. Let me turn off my shank before we do that. And I'm going to select this bottom profile I used to create this. And I'm going to MSR it. So I'm going to do an F6, MSR. I'm not going to make any changes. Enter. I'm going to select it again. F6, profile cap. And I just want this to be just barely bigger than that profile, just so it sticks out, so I can make a nice solid surface once I join that all together. Nothing's been joined yet. So I'm going to quad flip this around. Now we could grab this and we could use our mirror twice. Select gray, do mirror again. And that works. That's just fine and dandy. But we're going to actually do a different way. So we're going to select mirror, this prong. We're going to come to our cutters menu, and the second to last icon, so the last orange icon, quad flip. And I'm going to look down. This piece we're wanting to quad flip is in the lower right hand quadrant of our viewport. So we've got our blue line and our red line, which makes up our axes of our X and Y. And this is in that lower right quadrant. So we need to make sure that in this builder that option is selected. And then we can click apply. Give it a second. It will flip all of that around. And there we go. And history is still enabled on this. And let's highlight gray, turn everything off just so we can see it. And I'm going to right click on the hide button. And I'm going to grab just this original first half and I'm going to pull it out. Now we can see that everything still just like we drew it, and our history is enabled. So let's put it back in its right place. Let's turn everything back on by doing the show. I'm going to take the dark green metal layer 1 and I'm going to mirror that across to the other side. So now if you didn't know, if you right click on mirror, you can see it in the description menu there. It automatically selects F4 as your origin point. All right. There we go. That's looking good. And we can turn everything on. Now, this is basically done. I need to make sure I job bag this. I need to turn on my other layers so I job bag everything. But let's say we feel we need to make some changes. Maybe we want to have these 2 under bezels touch in some way to better strengthen things up. Let's see if we can accomplish that here fairly easily, hopefully. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do cross select, and I'm going to make sure that I have got the top portions of my two prongs on this side stone, under gallery, and stone. select that. And the under gallery. And this back set, I am going to deselect. And I accidentally lost my... start again. All right, so I want to grab those two. I want to grab those two. I do not want the bottom. I want my under gallery and my gemstone. All right, so now in our finger view, let's drag this up just a little bit higher and maybe in a little bit more. Give that a second and you'll notice that the history has caused that to update. Let's give this a little bit steeper of an angle. Again, history is updating for us. Let's see how that looks. That actually looks really good. You can see that we've got really good touch right here. We've got touch on the prongs, and we've got space enough to push those prongs over. I'm kind of liking that. But our shank no longer comes up to our under gallery. So let's highlight that curve. MSR. Let's push it up a little further and enter. Maybe just a tiny tad touch more. MSR. Okay. Smoother transition right there. Now our prongs here are sticking out of the side of the ring. And what we can do is, if you remember how we were just a tiny touch behind this profile, we grab that first one we created. And in our through finger view, we'll rotate it from F4 and move it approximately to that same location. So just barely behind. And now that all comes together. And we have got us a great little fancy 3-stone ring. Well, I hope you like this video. I hope it helps. When you're ready to finish this all up, I'm going to save this other version. You can highlight everything there and do a join. So Control J. And everything here should be joined. Let's see our command line. 44 surfaces joined into 5 closed poly surfaces and 4 open poly surfaces. All right, what do we got that's open? Let's start working our way through this. And I'm going to pull pieces apart. That one there looks good. We'll move it back together. And let's turn on our object checker. Now I could grab everything and drop it in here. And it said some objects did not pass, but it's not always going to show you nicely which objects that was that did not pass. So I'm going to start off by doing these one layer color at a time. Okay, so that green layer there passed. I'm going to hide that. Let's select my gray. There's one that failed, so I'm just going to turn off that layer. I'm going to select everything else. Everything else passes but the gray, so let's highlight just the gray. And let's find out why. I'm going to take those 3, I'm going to throw them all away. Put that one in, it fails. So the first thing I like to do when I'm trying to debug a naked edge on something that I think should be closed is I'll highlight it and I will do an explode and join and see if that fixed it, because sometimes it does based off of tolerances. Then with it still highlighted, if it didn't fix it, and we can see that in our command line into one open poly surface, I'm going to type cap. And again, if there happens to be an opening that's planar, it will fix that. This is still open. So now we need to find where it's open at. Let's come to our utilities menu. First row, show edges. And I'm going to select that object. And it's got a nasty seam for some reason. Two things we can do here. We can debug this and try to fix this, and make this proper. But in the long run, do we really need to go through this extra level of work? And the reason why I'm asking that question is because we do have a command in Matrix 8 and 9 in our Tools menu. First page, second row, second from last, called Mesh Repair. This is your last step before you send your model out to your 3D printer or your wax mill. This turns your entire piece into a single solid mesh. That will easily fix this one little error. So technically we don't need to worry about it. But we can go in there and figure out why if we so desire. Myself, honestly, I'm not going to be concerned. I'm going to do an undo until I get all 4 of my prongs back out there. Everything has been joined. All of my history is now broken. So I could basically come in here and I can turn off all of my curves. I'm going to select this entire piece, turn off my gems as well. And I'm going to go to this repair mesh, or mesh repair. I like to set my layer color to something different than what I have been using if possible. In the command line, select delete input objects equals on, because I've already job bagged this before I've done this step, so I'm not worried about losing anything. And then hit enter to start. Now this is probably the most crash prone command in my opinion in Matrix. So as soon as you click the go or the enter button, just take your hands away from the keyboard. Sit back and wait for it to finish its thing. Alright, so it's done now. And we'll see that it's changed its layer color. And we actually lost our 2 outside prongs. This means there is something more wrong with it. Oh, no, I forgot to leave them on. My fault. Back up. Do the command again with everything turned on. Mesh repair. Make sure delete objects is on. Changed my layer color. And I hit enter and it's running. Again, take your hands away from the keyboard. Anything you do could cause this to lag and hang for a very long time. Alright, it's done. And we can see that it's all solid. Well, we see that it looks like it's all solid, but let's run this through our object checker to make sure. Highlight it. And everything passes. So we just saved ourselves some time from going through and trying to debug this one piece to figure out why it's not solid by just using our mesh repair tool, and saved us some time. Again, you can go back and do that. Excuse me. Sorry about that. The phone rings when you're in the middle of recording. Alright, so where was I? Alright, yeah, so everything there looks good. We're ready to send this off to our 3D printer. So with everything on, make sure I've got my finger rails turned on. I'm going to grab and highlight all of that, and I'm going to drop this into my output job bag. I'm going to also put a copy of this into my masters job bag. The reason why I put them into my masters is so that you see your thumbnails when you're in your project manager. Okay, turn that all off. That's all saved. And I'm also going to save a copy of this finished, all meshed up copy in a job bag itself there. All right, so let's go back a couple steps. Back to here. What if we change our stone size? Or maybe we don't like those exact placements. That's probably a little bit proud for those stone coverage with our prongs. Maybe we don't like that much coverage. So what I'm going to do, I know that this was the first prong that I swept to. So that's where my history happens to live. That's our parent. I'm going to select those pieces that I had used profile sweep on, as well as the curves. And I'm looking down. I'm going to move these. I'm going to hold down shift. I'm not using my gumball. And I'm going to grab it, and I am going to move in the 45-degree angle. out to wherever I feel that my coverage happens to be. So if I were to undo this in this other viewport, you can see what that did. Also notice that this one here did not keep up. The curves moved, but the prong did not move. So we're going to have to re-sweep that one. So let's come to this top view. I'm going to grab those prongs all from this 1/2. Throw them all away because we'll re-flip those guys around after we're done. This prong we already know is going to have to be redone. And we had joined that together. I should have done this before the join, so let me do some undos here. I'm watching my command line. I want to get back to before I did the join. All right, undoing the join. So now these are individual pieces. This should actually work now. So now if I grab those objects there, and am I looking down, I'm going to hold down shift and move this in the 45-degree angle. Ah, good. It looks like most of it kept up. We just have to do a redo this profile sweep here. So again, we're going to get rid of the stuff on the back side that we had mirrored over to. Delete. Anything else that we had mirrored over, we're going to go ahead and get rid of. So we'll get rid of this gray right here, because we're going to mess with that one as well. So we've just got 1, 2, 3 sweeps here still. Since this one didn't keep up, let's just delete that. Highlight that curve, do our profile sweep. Highlight the top one, and we're going to do MSR. Enter. We're not going to make any changes to it. F6. Profile cap, and we want to make this 0.5 millimeters tall, and enter. I'm going to change those layer colors to match. Okay, now we're going to use our gem view on this side one. And we're going to go to our looking down view. And we're going to do basically the exact same thing, except for with this side stone. We're going to grab it and hold down shift so we ortho in the 45-degree angle until we get to where we want. Let go. That one updated just fine. Oh, we missed a curve. We're missing a curve there. I lost a curve somewhere. All right, there's another way to do this. Let's see. Let me turn off my gemstones for the moment. I'm going to turn off that prong. Still kind of curious where I lost that piece, but anyhow, we'll work around that. I'm going to hold down Shift and Control. This is sub-select. And I'm going to scrub across here and grab. It looks like I'm grabbing exactly the same thing as I did before, but this time I'm also grabbing the edges of these surfaces. Turn that gem back on, and let's move it this time and see what. I lost it. Lost my selection. Grab it again with my sub-select, Shift and Control. Looking down with my gem on. I'm going to hold down Shift and push this out 45 degrees. And that did not keep up. All right, so undo. Oh, that's where I lost it. That was on my cutting layer. Okay, this time it should work. So let's grab that profile. That profile. Looking down. hold down Shift. There we go. That's where I lost that profile. That worked out better. And we'll do the same thing here. We'll grab the profile, looking down, hold down Shift, and everything updated. And now it's just a matter of mirroring those three parts over. So I'm going to grab gray first. I'll mirror it straight across. And then I'm going to grab gray, that prong, and all of its parts. And I'm going to select mirror. Mirror. Oh, no, I wanted to do a copy rotate. Undo that. Everything is still selected. Looking down. Right click on rotate. Automatically selects yes from F. Uh-oh, look at this. I'm not looking straight down at my piece. And I've got a little gem in the corner which indicates that I'm still in gem view. Escape, unselect, and click gem view again to get out of that. I'll swipe across, make sure I've grabbed everything. Start that again. Right click on rotate from F4, 180. Enter, enter. And there we go. If you want, you can always add a cross member here if you want to, or you can leave that open. I think there's probably plenty of strength there to hold that all together nicely. Or if you want, you can also take this curve, and let's make it just a little bit wider. 0.8. That'll give us a 1.6 millimeter. We want to do the same thing on this blue one. And then we can leave them in their current positions, or we can adjust where they go so that they can possibly even touch a little bit. It's a matter of moving those two profiles in or out to wherever your desired position happens to be. All right, well, there we go. It's all done. We'll job bag it. If you make a bigger stone or a smaller stone, then we just come in and we grab the correct set of curves, our parent set of curves, and move those into the correct position, and this will all update around it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed, and have a good day.